The History of Scotland, Part 5, Renaissance, Reformation, and Mary Queen of Scots, 1500 to 1603. The 16th century was a turning point for Scotland. It was an age of Renaissance learning and artistic flowering, but also of religious upheaval, dynastic intrigue and bloodshed. At its heart stood one of the most famous figures in Scottish history, Mary, Queen of Scots, whose life was shaped by beauty, betrayal and tragedy. The Renaissance in Scotland. The Renaissance swept into Scotland from continental Europe. Kings, nobles and churchmen embraced new learning, art and architecture. James IV, who ruled from 1488 to 1513, and James V, who ruled from 1513 to 1542, sponsored poets, musicians and architects. James IV was fluent in several languages and encouraged humanist learning. James V built magnificent palaces, such as Stirling Castle and Linlithgow Palace, filled with Renaissance decoration and design. Education expanded. The University of St Andrews, Glasgow and Aberdeen flourished, influenced by humanism. Scholars studied Latin, law, philosophy and medicine. Poetry and literature thrived, with figures like William Dunbar and Sir David Lindsay, who blended courtly verse with biting satire. Architecture saw continental styles arrive. Palaces and abbeys were refashioned with elegant stone carvings and classical motifs. Yet while the Renaissance brought culture, the greatest upheaval came not from art, but from faith. The Scottish Reformation, 1560. For centuries, Scotland had been a Catholic nation. Monasteries like Arbroath, Melrose and Holyrood Abbey dominated spiritual and political life. The church was rich and powerful, but also accused of corruption and greed. In the early 1500s, whispers of reform spread from Europe. Martin Luther in Germany, John Calvin in Geneva. Scottish students returning from abroad brought radical ideas. John Knox and the Reformers. The leading voice was John Knox, a fiery preacher influenced by Calvin. Knox condemned Catholic rituals as idolatry and denounced Mary of Guise, the Catholic regent of Scotland. In 1559 to 1560, rebellion broke out. Reformers, backed by some nobles and secretly supported by England, stormed monasteries and destroyed religious images. In 1560, the Scottish Parliament formally adopted Protestantism. The Catholic Mass was outlawed, monasteries were dissolved, and the Presbyterian Kirk was established, governed not by bishops, but by elected elders. The Scottish Reformation reshaped the nation. Churches became plainer, stripped of decoration. The Kirk instilled strict moral discipline. This new faith would dominate Scottish life for centuries. Mary, Queen of Scots, 1542 to 1587. At the centre of this turbulent era stood Mary Stuart, a woman whose story is one of the most tragic and captivating in history. Early life, Mary was born in December 1542, the daughter of James V and Mary of Guise, a French noblewoman. Her father died just 6 days after her birth, leaving her Queen of Scots while still an infant. To secure her throne, she was betrothed to the French Dauphin. At the age of 5, she was sent to France, where she was raised in splendour at the French court. She grew up highly educated, fluent in French, Latin and Scots, and admired for her beauty. Queen Consort of France. In 1558, Mary married the French Dauphin, who became Francis II the next year. For a brief time she was Queen of both France and Scotland, But in 1560 Frances died suddenly. At just 18, Mary was a widow, returned to Scotland. 1561. In 1561, Mary returned to a Scotland transformed by the Reformation. She was a devout Catholic in a country now officially Protestant. At first, Mary tried compromise. She attended private Catholic Mass, but allowed the Protestant Kirk to dominate public life. But suspicions surrounded her. Reformers like John Knox thundered against her idolatry. Many Protestant nobles mistrusted her Catholic ties to France and Spain. Marriages and scandals. Mary's reign was cursed by personal misfortune and political scandal. Lord Darnley, Henry Stuart. In 1565, Mary married her cousin Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. At first the match seemed to strengthen her claim to the English throne, but Darnley was arrogant, ambitious and abusive. In 1566 he joined a conspiracy of nobles to murder Mary's secretary, David Rizzio, dragging him from her side and stabbing him over 50 times. Darnley soon fell out of favour. In 1567, he was mysteriously murdered at Kirkerfield, his house blown up and his body found strangled. The Earl of Bothwell, James Hepburn. Suspicion fell on the Earl of Bothwell, a powerful noble and Mary's ally. In a shocking twist, Mary married Bothwell just weeks after Darnley's murder. Many believe she was complicit or coerced. The scandal outraged the nobles, rebellion and abdication. In 1567, Protestant lords rebelled. At Carberry Hill, Mary surrendered. She was imprisoned in Loch Leven Castle, where she was forced to abdicate in favour of her infant son, James VI. Mary escaped in 1568 and tried to rally support, but her forces were defeated at the Battle of Langside. With no allies left, she fled south to England, seeking protection from her cousin Elizabeth I. Imprisonment and execution. Elizabeth saw Mary as a threat. As a Catholic with a strong claim to the English throne, Mary was a rallying point for Catholic plots. For 19 years, Mary was held under house arrest in various English castles. In 1586, her downfall came with the Babington Plot, a Catholic conspiracy to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. Letters in Mary's hand appeared to implicate her. In 1587, Mary was tried for treason and sentenced to death. On the 8th of February 1587, at Fotheringay Castle, she was executed. Accounts say she approached the scaffold with dignity, wearing a red petticoat, the colour of Catholic martyrdom. Her last words, "Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit." The legacy of Mary and the rise of James VI. Mary's life ended in tragedy, but her bloodline endured. Her son, James VI of Scotland, was raised Protestant and ruled under regents until he came of age. In 1603, when Elizabeth I of England died childless, James inherited the English throne, uniting the crowns of Scotland and England. He became James VI of Scotland and James I of England, the first monarch of a united British Isles. Mary's dream of dynastic greatness, denied to her in life, was realised through her son. The 16th century transformed Scotland. The Renaissance brought learning, art and palaces of splendour. The Reformation tore down the old church and reshaped faith and society. And at the centre of it all stood Mary, Queen of Scots, a woman of brilliance and tragedy, whose life of scandal, rebellion and execution has become a legend. Her death marked the end of an era, but her legacy lived on in the reign of her son James, who would unite Scotland and England into one crown. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to watch the next part of the history of Scotland. And, as always, stay curious.